David, yes, and the official word from the county is that family members, all the family members, have been notified as of just a few minutes ago. Those 10 people died in the hangar that is right behind me when their plane that they were riding on reportedly veered to the left, rolled over, and the wing clipped that building. The plane was headed for St. Petersburg, Florida when it departed here at Addison. We don't yet officially know the names of the 10 people who were on board, but we do know a fair amount about the plane that they were riding on. That King Air 350 that you mentioned really is the cream of the crop when it comes to private planes. This footage is from the manufacturer Beechcraft. It gives you a sense of this plane. It's not a jet, but it is a multi-million-dollar aircraft with high-end finishes and the latest technology. The plane that crashed here was manufactured just 2 years ago, and today an aviation expert told us that even if one of its 2 engines failed on takeoff, that does not mean that it was destined to crash.
This aircraft has good single engine performance, so if you lose an engine on takeoff, there's systems in place where it should be manageable. Auto feather to reduce the drag on the engine that just quit. There's a lot of automatic features.
This plane didn't have what we know of as a black box, but electronics on board were likely recording data that could help explain what happened. The NTSB will be looking for those electronics if they survived the crash. We do know, by the way, that a similar King Air 200 crashed in 2014 when it struck an airport building in Wichita, Kansas. That crash was also fatal, but the pilot radioed beforehand that he lost his left engine. There's still so much that we don't know about what happened here, but you can only think of those 10 people on board, their final moments, and those families that are getting the final word tonight. Guys.